It is 7 p.m. on April 28th. I will call the Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to welcome introductions and opening remarks. As before, I will go through a quick roll call. And then we will also have several people give an introduction of themselves. We've gotten good feedback on that. I think it is a good way for us all to stay connected. So we'll continue that at least for the time being. So let me start with the roll call. Egan Murphy.
I'm present.
Alton Brusso, sorry. Terry Tatro from Alberg.
Here.
And he's also here from Alberg Village. Bakersfield, Bill Irwin.
Here.
Berkshire, Vincent Hickey.
Here.
Berkshire, Claude Sharon. Enosburg Falls, Leonard Sharon. Enosburg Falls, Sean Kyle.
Got it. Here.
Turn that light on. And
Also, he is from Enosburg Town. Fairfax, Colleen Stein. Steen
is here.
Steen is here. Fairfax, Brad.
Brad is here.
Fairfield, Alicia LaRock.
Alicia had to work, she said. She let me know.
Fairfield, Brian Doobie.
yep, I'm here.
Fletcher, Lynn Douglas.
Here.
Fletcher, Lori Rupel. Franklin, Yvonne Donderand.
Here.
Donderand. Franklin, Wesley Kempton.
Here.
Georgia, Scott St. Ange. Georgia, Kirk Waite here. Grand Isle, Barkley Morris.
Yeah, I'm here.
Grand Isle, Howard Demars. Highgate, Richard Noel. Isle Lamont, Sylvia Jensen. Montgomery, Charlie Hancock. North Hero, Andy Alling.
Here.
Richford, Rowena Brown.
Here.
Sheldon, Jeff Kane. South Hero, Joe Farnham.
Joe let me know he couldn't make it.
South Hero, Bob Berman.
Here.
St. Albans City, Marty Manahan. St. Albans City, Laz Skangas. St. Albans Town, Sarah Had.
Present.
St. Albans Town, Albin Vogel.
Here.
Swanton Town, Harold Garrett.
Here.
Swanton Town, Ross Lavoy. Swanton Village, Elizabeth Nance. Swanton Village, Neil Spear. And based on that roll call, we have a quorum.
And we
Catherine?
also, yes, we do. And I forgot to mention that Elizabeth let me know she couldn't make it tonight. And it looks like we had someone join a minute ago that now is gone, Richard Callahan.
Okay, so we have 4 board members who have agreed to be victims or not for introductions tonight. In no particular order, I'll just take them as I had written them down. Sarah, would you go first, please?
Sure. Evening, I'm Sarah Had. I reside in Salmonstown with my husband and 2 kiddos. I grew up in Salmon City and I work as a planning director for the town of Colchester, certified planner and floodplain manager. I appreciate this group because you sort of have an idea of what that is. I often get mistaken by some people as a person that might have gone into education and be a teacher. I come from a family of educators. I just smile and nod sometimes when people ask me what I do. So I also serve on the Salmonstown Planning Commission and looking forward to getting out on the lake this summer and enjoying some time out there with the family.
Thank you very much. Yvonne Donderon from Franklin.
So seems like there's so many people that seem to always ask me if I'm American or Canadian, so I'm going to have to start with a little bit of background as to exactly how I became what I am. So my great grandfather in 1915 was a Canadian, came here to Franklin, bought a farm. And then after that, my grandfather was born here in Franklin in 1919. He got married and married a Canadian citizen. So my father was born here in Franklin in 1943. He also married a Canadian citizen. Then I was born here in Franklin in 1966. I also married a Canadian citizen. And then in 1997, our son, Philip, which some of you know that was on the board for a while as a Franklin youth member, was also born here in Franklin. And what I have to mention is that every one of us that were born here in Franklin were born in the very same house that I own today on the same farm. So now that you know that French has always been part of my roots here, and my roots are very deep here in Franklin, and French has always been the only language we spoke in the house. It was French. So I graduated from MVU in '84. And from there, I became a jack of all trades, from a mechanic, farmer to equipment operator, welder, electricity. I just got into everything, but mostly 23 years of my life, I drove semi-trucks. And then I became a transportation manager for RL Valley Incorporated. I spent 10 years on the select board for my hometown. And I will finish by saying that I think that one of my biggest accomplishments personally was the fight that we put up to save our Morses Line border crossing. That was done with a lot of neighboring towns, my cousin, neighbors. As you know, why Morses Line is so sentimental to me, just because 90% of my family is across the border.
How else is
So-
Philip gonna go find a wife?
Yeah, exactly. So right now the pressure is on Philip to see what he's going to do.
Slim pickings up here in Franklin.
Oh goodness. So anyway, that's my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleen Steen from Fairfax.
Yes. Yes, Colleen Steen from Fairfax, formerly of Burlington, born in Burlington. And then I moved all the way up here to Fairfax 50 years ago, where we built a small house about 2 miles outside of town. And our family soon outgrew that. So we bought the Baptist parsonage in the village and restored it. I have 2 children and 5 grandchildren, and I think there's a couple of great grandchildren now. So that's pretty cool. I had a small antique business for a while. I physically labored to restore 4 historic buildings in Fairfax. I did about a 10-year stint as a professional actor. I participated in various other career and volunteer endeavors over the years, including co-facilitating cognitive self-change sessions in the correctional facilities with offenders. Worked in the women's shelter, various things like that, the rest of the house. My interest in planning and development started about 20 years ago, when a toxic business was operating on property adjoining my property. And I went to the owner and asked that we could resolve some of the issues like hours of operation and those kinds of things. And he told me if I didn't like what was happening here, get the hell out of town. So I went to the select board and they said, well, it's not their problem, it's your problem, Colleen. So I went to the district director of the environmental board and asked for a jurisdictional opinion. And he determined that they had no permits to operate whatsoever. They were in violation of local, state, and federal laws. So I pursued that for a while. And the outcome is that I'm still here. I didn't get the hell out of town, but the environmental court ordered them to vacate the premises. So that worked out okay. I learned a lot about the planning and development process during that. One of my life philosophies is if I'm not part of the solution, I'm part of the problem. So I got on the planning commission in the town, which the owner of that business was chair. And then I got on the development review board, and the owner of that business was chair of that committee as well. But I did learn a lot in the process. And I was appointed to the Regional Planning Commission in TAC about 20 years ago. And I was just appointed again this year. So it looks like you're stuck with me. And
you like to ski and garden?
I do. I like to garden and bicycle and kayak and hike and ski, especially on beautiful days on the slope when we can have tailgate parties after, which our chair, Mr. Waite, has apparently witnessed.
Only because I was there.
Yes, you were.
Thank you, Colleen. Brian Doobie from Fairfield.
Yeah, hello. My name is Brian Doobie. I was asked to serve on regional planning by the select board. I went in for a meeting and they turned around and pointed a finger at me, and I'm glad they asked me. It's been a privilege and been good to get to know some of you all from the meetings. We live on a sugar woods in Fairfield. My brother and I and a couple other employees have a 46,000 tap operation here. Was very honored where my brother was selected as the sugar maker of the year last year, 2020. And I got a 33-year career going with American Airlines. I'm a captain flying 737s. I also have a consulting business and a leadership and business development for some local and some international companies that I've had for 10 years. I was a former commander in the Vermont Air Guard. I flew F-16s and F-4s, and I was an instructor pilot for 32 years. I was a chairman of the Essex School Board for 6 years. We educated 4 kids. And it was interesting, last meeting, we have 3 kids that work in California on a life insurance startup. One of my sons is a co-founder, and it seems like we've gotten 2 of our 4 children home, which was fun with the whole COVID displacement. But the connectivity issues for rural Vermont are really important, and I'm glad regional planning is sinking their teeth into that, because that's a huge issue, as I've kind of found out personally, for bandwidth issues, and I look forward to continuing in assisting on this for the town of Fairfield on regional planning.
Thank you,
I
Brian.
also served, I'm sorry, I served as lieutenant governor for four terms.
I was gonna
in
say, you kind of left out a
2003
thing.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, 2003 to 2011. So I do know the sausage factory pretty well in Montpelier.
And my condolences on a tough sugar season.
Yeah, it's pretty rough for a lot of people across the state, and talking to people all the way, southern Vermont, central Vermont. A lot of people have kind of tightened their belts and figure out how to make, do the old Vermont way, do more with less.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you for all of the service that you've done. We
Thank you.
also have two people on staff who are going to do introductions. The first is Christine Porcaro.
Yeah, hi. I'm the Farm and Food Business Coordinator for the Healthy Roots Collaborative. I first moved to Vermont in 2011, and I moved up here to work at Fat Toad Farm, which was a goat dairy down in Brookfield, Vermont. So my background is goat dairy and value-added products. We made a goat's milk caramel sauce. Before that, I had actually worked on a cattle ranch out in Wyoming, and that was sort of my first agricultural experience, but wanted to do it on a smaller scale. So coming up to Vermont was sort of the perfect move for me. And so now with Healthy Roots, I do a lot of work with farm and food businesses here in Franklin and Grand Isle. In terms of, how the farm store is going to do and how to get food direct to customers, because there was definitely an increase with COVID with people buying directly from farmers. So trying to see if that same trend is going to happen this year as more and more people are vaccinated, or they're going to go back to their regular purchasing habits, or are they going to continue to buy directly from farmers? So it's sort of interesting to be out in the field and getting to talk to people more and more.
Thank you, Christine. And Linda Blash.
Hi, everyone. Let's see. I first moved to Vermont in 1996 to go to college at St. Mike's. And that didn't work out, so I left, but I was bitten by the Vermont bug, and I moved back after I graduated college in 2002. So I've been here for almost 20 years consecutively. 15 of those years I lived in Jeffersonville, and for the past 4 years I now live in Jericho. My main project at Northwest Regional Planning is managing the Grants and Aid Program, which is funding for towns to improve their roads to meet the municipal roads general permit requirements. If you don't know what that is, you're lucky. It's a fairly complicated state permit. If you have questions specifically about it, I'd be happy to talk to you about it, but I'm not going to get into it here today. I also manage a couple of VTrans federal highway projects with 2 towns in our region, one in Franklin and one in Montgomery. I'm also working on a Lake Champlain Basin Program grant to do a road erosion inventory on private roads in the Lake Carmi watershed. I also assist municipalities in our region with Northern Borders Regional Commission grants, and I also have a little piece of energy planning work that I'm just getting up to speed on. And I think those are mostly what I do. I'm a skier, downhill and cross country. I'm a hiker. I have a daughter, she's 9 years old. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Linda. And, as we've gone through these introductions, I'm actually amazed at how talented a group this is, and how diverse in experience we are. Certainly not diverse in the way we all look necessarily, but diverse in experience. Excuse me. And frankly, the region is fortunate to have such a skilled board of commissioners and staff for the Regional Planning Commission. Next agenda item is opportunity for public comment.
Just one quick thing.
Sure.
Bob, I love the haircut.
It's noticeable, huh?
Just a little bit.
Now that
yeah.
Bob
saw
spoke
your
up, I
face.
see it.
Yeah, I saw your Facebook post, but it looks good. I'm not getting there for a while yet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Minutes of the March 2021 meeting, they were enclosed in the packet that each of you have. Any errors, omissions? Yes, Bob.
On line 84, my name was misspelled, so I'd make a motion to accept the minutes with a spelling error fix.
I'm very sorry. I didn't catch that.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next, we'll go through the commission reports. Finance and Operations, Harold Garrett.
Thank you, Kurt. Catherine, I don't have the financials. They didn't come through and I didn't receive a package, so I'll have to rely on you for that.
I'm sorry you didn't receive a packet, Harold. That's odd.
I didn't either.
I didn't either. Okay. Very odd. Sorry
The
about
packet
that.
I got was in the link for the meeting itself.
Right. Okay.
And it did have the profit and loss budget versus actual.
Right.
So if you want to look at that link, they should be able to find it.
And I can also display it if you would like me to.
Sure.
That would be great.
Sure. Let's see. That's not looking very good. Let's see.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, why is it doing that? I'm sorry, it's looking very strange. See if I can fix that.
It's just large, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the profit and loss, the budget versus actual, you can see through the end of March, we're negative $43,541. That is primarily due to our billing cycle. So we have begun our quarterly invoicing for the January to March time period where we'll be recouping the salary and fringe benefit expenses and many of the other expenses that are listed in the expenses in the profit and loss report. So we're generally doing really well. We did start to go through our quarterly invoices and we're pretty much on target with all of our grants and contracts in terms of what we will be billing. So I think we're looking in good shape, being 3/4 of the way into the year.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about the profit and loss sheet? Hearing none, let's move on to the balance sheet, Catherine.
The balance sheet is, it shows our current bank account balances. We're looking good. Our reserve funds are still intact and our liabilities are right where we would expect them to be. The one thing I will call your attention to is we do have a pretty high accrued vacation liability compared to what we would normally at this time of the year. With the extra workload that people took on during the pandemic, we've had a lot of people come up to our maximum accumulation of vacation time. So we are working on encouraging people to take time off, as well as looking ahead to when things open back up, how we're going to manage the workload and people's desire to take that time off and make up for time lost. So it is something to pay attention to. It does exceed our current reserves for our vacation reserves, but I think it's a temporary blip. So I don't think we need to make any adjustments.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the balance sheet? Hearing none. Thank you. Personnel, Lori Rupel.
We did meet in April. We were discussing some staffing plans, possible new position that will be advertised for shortly. And also getting ready for the evaluations that'll come later this summer. I don't know if you need any more detail than that.
That's fine from my perspective. The executive committee did meet. I was not there. The topics of discussion were primarily around the 22 staffing and budget preview. Also the Montpelier Granite Works RLF loan agreement extension. And there was also some discussion around fiscal year 22 officers and nominations. And I guess this is as appropriate a place as any. I have selected the nomination committee. All have agreed to serve. It is Albin Vogel, Barclay Morris, Bob Berman, Elizabeth Nance, and Yvonne Donderon. So thank you all of you for serving. And I look forward to the slate that you'll bring forward. Project review, Alicia isn't here. Bill, are you able to walk us through that quickly?
Yeah, so there's a report in your handout. We had a project called Bayview Crossing Senior Housing Facility. They are adding on to the facility there. And the project looked really good, but we had additional questions. And so we put off voting relative to regional impact or conformance with the regional plan until after. We also had a project that quite interesting we've talked about previously, which is a battery electric storage system, which is useful for especially wind turbine or solar projects that generate power and need to store it between use because it's not constantly generated. And there'll be more of those across the state. We hope to actually have someone perhaps from the Department of Public Service come and talk about those, because we've had one of the first in the state here in the region. We have not voted on that either. We still have some additional time on that. There was another project that we did vote was not of substantial regional impact, that it was in conformance with the regional plan, and that was a solar facility in St. Albans, 2.2 megawatts, so a fairly large project. And then also the Barry Calabo facility, which is an addition, new access drive, and we found that that too had no substantial regional impact and was in conformance with our regional plan. And so there's no action for the full board of directors this month on the project reviews.
Thank you, Bill. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Bill? Transportation Advisory Committee, Harold?
Yes, we met and we had a great presentation by Chittenden County Transportation or regional plan down there on what they plan on doing on Interstate 89. And it's quite interesting. If anybody has a link to that, I would encourage them to see. There's going to be some major changes. I think some of them are going to be to the good. Some of them are well, until people get used to them. There was quite a lot of conversation about it, especially like at exit, we get off to go to Costco, that'd be a figure 8. So until you've actually driven through a figure 8, that's, it actually works really well. I'm quite familiar with the one when I traveled to Missouri out to my family out there, because that's quite common in that area. But the first time it is really scare the heck out of you because you're crossing over and cars are coming at you on the wrong side. But other than that, I-80 or 189, one of their things is the coming out of Shelburne, going back into South Burlington, one of them roads will disappear and they'll be all put into one. So it's quite interesting. I think it was a great presentation. It took well over an hour for them to present it, and they're coming back actually this fall with a final presentation. And so if anybody's interested, I would encourage them to see what's actually going to be happening on the interstate. We reviewed some of the paving projects and some of the bridging projects and how do they categorize them. And they're actually, we have a little more input than we've ever had before. So that again is quite encouraging. And that pretty much covers it. Barclay, do you think there was anything else that I missed?
I think the big thing is that VTrans is starting to pay more attention to the regional tax when they bring up a project that's not flying on the VTrans radar. I think they learned their lesson with 104A that we had been harping about for a number of years, and they'd been ignoring us, and that blew up. And they have now changed the criteria so that when one of the regional tax brings up a transportation issue, they pay a little bit more attention to it, and they give it a little bit more weight when they start deciding what projects are more important down the road.
Great.
Actually,
I did see a notification today, actually, I'm sure it came out before today, that paving between Georgia and St. Albans on Route 7 will start on or around May 15th for the project and end in October. So it must be a fairly large project, but a lot of people will be happy to hear that.
Right, they're gonna do that one, Kirk, and another one that they're gonna do that's been on our radar screen for years in Franklin. And Yvonne, I'm sure you've heard about that, is the 120. The TAC committee feels that we're really wasting money, but they are going to repave Route 120 up there. And it's just going to be a Band-Aid because within 2 years, it's going to be back where it is, but it'll be good for 2 years.
Mhm.
As far as the Interstate 89 study, they also presented to, I think it was the South Burlington Select Board, and the headline in the Free Press the next day said it left a lot of people confused, and I'm more inclined to lean in that direction. I don't think the changes that they're suggesting and the priorities that are making is going to affect Franklin County at all. I think we're coming out of Grand Isle County, we're going to continue to have problems with exit 17, regardless of how they change it around. And I think in their study, they're really ignoring that the backups are on the feeder roads to 89 rather than an issue with the interstate itself. But it is a long-term plan, and they agree that circumstances will change it. So it'll be interesting to see how it finally finishes out.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And the one thing, so people that do travel the interstate know, especially going down through, we did ask them to study putting a on-ramp and exit ramp for Milton. But that was not included. They found that that wasn't gonna happen. And that's about it.
Thank you, Harold. Energy Committee, Bob? Oh, yes, go ahead, Al.
I assume that the transportation plans were made before President Biden's announcement about the infrastructure, the $1 billion extra money for infrastructure. Will that alter the state's plans with that money coming in?
We kind of brought that up, Al, but the people from AOT wouldn't commit.
Okay. Thank you.
But it must. Anyone else under TAC?
Just a quick question, Kurt, for Harold. Harold, as you know, there's been some pushback with what's going to be done or what they plan on doing on 120. The last board meeting that the town of Franklin had, there was one or two people there that pushed back with the amount of dollars being spent on, as you mentioned, a Band-Aid. But this Band-Aid, is there a time frame as to when they're going to relook at 120? Or is this going to be what we're going to get for 12, 15 years?
From what we can understand is they haven't committed to refurbishing it because it needs a whole new base.
Yes.
And what we didn't really like was the fact that they're going to grind it. So they're going to go through and grind off some that's already there. So you're going to take some of it away. We asked them, well, why don't you go back and this is what we asked the AOT people, and think about grinding it up, putting a new, a little bit more stone on it, then pave it. But that was a pretty much no. But
Okay.
The other thing that we looked at up there and we're still pushing for is where going out of town towards Lake Carmi, the four corners that are there, that is really a mess. And nobody still has an answer to that.
Okay. Thank you, Harold.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss under TAC?
Yeah, the only thing I would like to maybe say, Kirk, is any of the board commissioners to really, it's some of this stuff that's coming up that may be affecting your town, please zoom in because your input would be really great. Even though you're not on the TAC committee, we do love to listen to, people that want to have their say in what's happening in their community.
Thank you, Harold. Energy Committee, Bob?
Energy Committee did not meet.
Brownfields Committee, Laz? Laz, I don't think is on. Catherine, can you just give us a brief update?
As you noted in the executive committee update, they did recommend extending loan terms for the Montpelier Granite Works due to COVID-related delays. And we have submitted a new request for additional revolving loan funds from EPA, and we should know within a few months whether that was granted.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss under Brownfields? Seeing and hearing none. Regional Plan and Policy Committee, Lynn?
We didn't meet, but the indicator reports are going to be delayed even longer. I think that it's kind of a slog between people not having the time because of COVID to actually enter any data, and the fact that when we get it, it's probably going to be fairly skewed for this year. It's still going to be a couple months before we see what we've got.
Thank you, Lynn. Vermont Economic Progress Council, Al?
There was no applications from our region before VEPSI this month.
Green Mountain Transit, Bob.
So at our last meeting, we talked about some of the proposed changes to the service. I think I can't remember, was this meeting or the TAC meeting? I mentioned there was a proposal for St. Albans that is actually being put on hold. So we have no changes going on up here. And the other thing we've been talking about is we've gotten some additional funds coming in. So we're looking at making zero fare option for at least one more year. So we've been having discussions about how to apply that across the system, and also talking about how that applies to following years.
Thank you. Clean Water Advisory Committee.
The committee did not meet.
Thank you. Healthy Roots Advisory Committee, Brad.
Yeah, thanks. And Christine, feel free to jump in at any time here, but at our most recent discussions really revolved around continued infrastructure and business planning, looking at the budget and focusing on how to best fulfill Healthy Roots' role in the community. We're getting a lot of feedback from producers and partners through focus groups and data collected from surveys, and continuing to kind of just work towards identifying, the effective execution of the mission and expanding the regional impact for everyone involved in the process.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments on Healthy Roots Advisory Committee? Northwest Vermont Regional Foundation, staff.
No updates, but when the executive committee next meets, it will be also a regional foundation meeting.
Great. And office staff.
Linda or Christine, did you want to provide any updates before I go?
I mean, this is I guess a Healthy Roots update. I gave this in our staff meeting this morning, but Everyone Eats is celebrating its millionth meal this week. So that's a program Healthy Roots has been supporting since the beginning, since its start last year. So I guess it's tomorrow that it will be the millionth meal served in Vermont. So we've had a bunch of Franklin and Grand Isle restaurants involved in the program, which has been really exciting. And a lot of our community partners giving out those meals each week. So it's been a really big effort from a lot of people in the community, and it's been really fun to be a part of it, and really fun to see how charitable food and how it could look, engaging local businesses, engaging local farms. So it's something to be really proud of, and something that, this community was a really, really fun place to work in terms of this program.
Thank you.
Linda, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, then I'll give a few updates. First, I wanted to point out, in case you didn't see it, that there was actually some information released right after our last meeting about property sales to out-of-town buyers. And I just put the link in the chat, and I'll email it out to everybody too. But it did show that, like Brian asked at the last meeting, and we had all heard anecdotally, that there was a 38% increase in property sales to out-of-state buyers versus previous years in 2020. So the data did come out that actually did show that the anecdotal stories were true. And I will email everybody that link as well, in case you want to see the data. So I thought you'd be interested to know that, since when we last met, that question was asked and there was no data released, and now we have it. As many of you know, I am a member of the Climate Council. So I represent the rural perspective on the Climate Council, and I'm also the co-chair of the Excuse me, just a second, please. Sorry about that. I'm also the co-chair of the Rural Resilience and Adaptation Subcommittee. And that committee has been really meeting and really getting down to business, looking at what resilience opportunities, what resilience planning we should be doing in our rural areas to address the impacts of climate change, looking at what state and federal programs exist already and how they could be modified to address the impacts of climate change. And also really taking a look at equity issues around those programs to make sure that they are modified as needed to really address existing inequities as well as address current and future inequities in terms of the impacts of climate change. So the overall council itself has done mostly process work to date. We just met this week and met with our public engagement consultant who will be designing a whole series of input opportunities for local governments and interest groups and regular citizens in the whole process. Currently, if you Google the Vermont Climate Council, you'll find that there is actually an online place where you can submit comments already. So if you're so inclined, you can feel free to do that. And all of the meetings and all the minutes of the meetings are, the videos and the minutes are posted on that Climate Council website. So there's a lot of information there if you want to kind of catch up and see what's going on. In terms of legislature, there's a lot going on in these crazy last several weeks of the session, but I wanted to update you on a few bills that either have moved or will finish moving before the end of the legislative session. The first is a rental registry bill. This bill sets up a statewide rental registry as well as shifts the health inspection for rental properties from the local health officers to state officials, the Department of Fire Safety. So this bill is moving and has a ton of support and has funding that goes along with it to build the new systems at the state level. And we'll take some pressure off municipalities who are supposed to have their volunteer health officers be the ones to be inspecting these rental properties. I think that will be welcomed by several of our communities. There's another housing bill that's also going through, and this is a little bit different than the one that was passed last year in that it incentivizes changes to local bylaws to address encouraging new housing. It also gets rid of the duplicative permitting that's required if you have a local water and sewer system where an applicant has to get both a local and a state permit. There is a cannabis bill that was moving and now is slow, so I'm not sure where it will go, but it basically flips the opt-in provision to be an opt-out provision for retail cannabis at the local level. So it completely changes the playing field for local decision-making on cannabis. And then finally, in the transportation bill, I just wanted to note that there is a section that was added that will have the Agency of Transportation work with the regional planning commissions to examine issues of equity in transportation. And with that will come some consultant assistance to help the regional planning commissions and our communities work with the Agency of Transportation on that issue. We'll be starting budgeting, so Finance Committee, you'll be hearing from me. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Catherine. Does anyone have any questions on the staff reports? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item
Al
6.
had a question, I think.
Catherine, how does the Transportation Agency define equity?
I'd have to look at the definition of the bill. I don't think it's defined in the bill per se. I think it's general terms. But in all the discussions that I've heard, it covers the gamut from looking at whether all of our transportation programs are available to people in an equitable way, whether it's race, economic status, ability, physical ability, and looking at whether the funding programs are allocated in a fair and equitable way. And so the whole gamut.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? sometimes tough for me to catch when people have something, so don't hesitate to yell in. Agenda item 6, Northwest Vermont Communications Union District discussion item. Sean?
Good evening, everyone. Give me 1 second. I'm going to I have a short deck that would be helpful. I'm going to leave my video off because ironically I have poor connectivity tonight. So give me 1 second.
You're up.
There we go. If this gets laggy at all, or I'm speaking way ahead, just let me know. Catherine, I did send this to you as well if I do have problems. I'm sure everyone here is aware the Northwest Communications Union District was created last year, and this is kind of in part the reason why. I think generally there's a concern about broadband across Franklin and Grand Isle County, and certainly those issues were even more so brought to the surface with the pandemic and how we interact with the world. So it was something that through a lot of conversations and a lot of kind of off the cuff agreements, I reached out to regional, and I was introduced to folks at the Public Service Department who kind of filled me in on the kind of what CUDs are and what else is happening through the state. So I want to kind of give everyone a kind of a brief idea of what we're working on and things to come, things we've accomplished, and also just a few items that would be useful, I feel. Our vision for the CUD is to break the barriers to internet access for all communities, ensuring that everyone has connectivity. Our mission, leveraging partnerships and procuring funding to connect Northwestern Vermont via open access fiber. I'll clarify open access a little later, to ensure opportunity. Hold on 1 second. Opportunity for all homes and businesses in our region. Our goals are universal access. Everyone has the same level of service, so you don't run into scenarios where, depending on what side of the street you live on, you have good internet or not. Technology platform that we are actively seeking is to use fiber optic cables rather than wireless or traditional cable, or what we most in this region have DSL internet. Our goal is to prioritize unserved in our region. Unserved, our definition is unserved is anyone who does not have 100 over 100, which is our speed tier. We conducted a survey a few months ago. The average speed tier within our region is around 30 over 2, 30 over 3 for internet speeds. The state has a mandated goal that they would like to achieve as well, and we agree that 100 over 100 is an achievable goal, and that every home and business should have access to that should they choose. We want to make sure that it's reliable, affordable. We feel that the CUD model accelerates that progress in ensuring that every unserved premise, we feel the CUDs are in the best position to make that happen the quickest. And we're shooting for 2022 for some level of implementation, actually having a portion of the network built and having folks get connected. The priority being under and unserved. Our current member communities, here's a map. If you don't see your town on here, feel free to reach out. We have connected to all the boards in every community within Franklin and Grand Isle. Some have chosen just to wait. Some have, they didn't necessarily see a direct need. But we feel that every community should have a seat at the table. So we've had discussions with everyone, and everyone's been invited, but certainly we're open to having those other parties join the CUD. A quick look back at kind of not even quite a year yet. We were created in August of 2020. Things happened really quickly. Quite literally on the first night, we had 3-member communities sign on. I simultaneously attended 3 select board meetings. That was interesting. And then, we quickly grew to now 12. We collaborate heavily with NRPC, obviously. They continue to provide the CUD with some administrative services, as well as helped us and collaborated on the Broadband Innovation Grant, which we are anxiously awaiting our feasibility report. So we're just waiting, hopefully any day now. We'll have that, which is a big first step into business planning and the next phases. We did complete a region-wide survey, which we had roughly 1,100 respondents, which we thought was a really great response. We asked questions about, what are their struggles and what are their biggest concerns, and also what are the speeds, what technology they're using now, and would fiber and would a different service be appealing to them. And almost unanimously, it was like 96% responded that they certainly would make a switch if something was more available. We deployed 19 free Wi-Fi hotspots all through the region. We collaborated with Vermont Community Foundation to provide local libraries technology grants. We're continuing to seek partnerships or collaboration efforts with other CUDs, the supervisory unions, electric utilities, about sharing resources and infrastructure. We have our subcommittees formed: communications, project management, finance, almost constantly applying for grants. Emily at Regional has been great at assisting us with identifying and doing the lion's share of writing that. And we're, especially over the last 2 months, I've been actively engaged with the legislature on broadband bills, H360, S118, and some that are coming in the future. The governor proposed his own. There's additional funds proposed with the infrastructure bill as well. So we're continuing to pay attention to that and staying engaged and trying to make our points. Looking ahead, we're likely to select our consultant for our business planning phase, which we'll get into right after we receive our feasibility. We are seeking to hire a CUD program manager or an operations manager to help us with the day-to-day. It is very intensive. There's a lot happening. Despite my volunteer efforts to stay ahead of everything, some things are difficult to do. So we strongly feel that a program manager to be here, at least on a part-time basis, would be helpful to continue our progress. Project plan our phased approach to regional build out, a site survey and the make ready process, which is working heavily with the utilities to make sure that's right before we put wires on poles. And then again, preparing us for implementation into mid 2022. A few questions I always get, and I always think it's important to address. Why fiber? Why not a wireless technology, or why not just give the money to a existing provider who already has infrastructure? Those providers right now are trying to switch to fiber because they see the true value in it. Fiber provides greater speeds opportunities. It's the only technology that can do symmetrical, so that 100 over 100. Only fiber can meet that standard. It's remarkably reliable. There's much less maintenance and issues with a fiber network versus other technologies. Affordability. You saw it there at the beginning. It's a generational technology. It can really make some socioeconomic contributions to the entire region. Employment opportunities, business development. There's even studies that show that simply having a fiber connection to your personal property can raise property values by a small percent. So there's a number of reasons why it's important, and it's future proof. Fiber really is only limited by the technology on either end of the wire. The wire itself, at least currently, doesn't necessarily have a limit. So, unlike some traditional network methods, it's a much more economical way to build out a network and for the long term. I had mentioned open access. It's always good to clear up. I get a lot of questions on like, what is specifically open access? the best way to think about an open access network versus what traditionally is done for internet service providers. If you think Comcast or Consolidated, they build the network and they are the only provider. They are the only provider that can operate on that network. We would like to get to a point when we have an open access network where multiple providers can operate on the network. There's a number of reasons. It introduces competition, it lowers rates, increases quality of service, again, because of the competition. So think of the CUD as an airport, and we want to invite providers to provide services over our network. So basically the CUD is seeking to become a network operator and not a provider of service. So that's the kind of the best way for us to clearly define what an open access network is and what our goal is. Any questions?
Thank you, Sean. It must have been really clear. Anyone have any questions?
I will say that, our meetings are open. We meet, I want to say the first and third Tuesday at 6:30. Our meetings are open to anyone as well. So should you have interest, by all means, attend. Certainly, we're always looking for other representatives to be a part of the group. We gain some and we lose some, right, Brad? But we're certainly grateful for the group that we have, and we have a good wealth of knowledge from utilities and telecom experience like myself, and we're kind of all over the place. So it's a good group, and we're actively working on a difficult situation, and we're certainly trying to figure out this problem for our whole region. So.
Thanks. I think this is really important, and someone who has used worked from home over the years many times and has used access to the internet and access to broadband in many endeavors that I've had. I understand the importance to get it out to everyone, and I'm appreciative of the work that people are doing in this area. This does bring to mind another thing, though, that drives me crazy in Vermont. And it's not part of your topic, but something that, maybe we should be thinking about, because I think our region is really underserved in this regard. As I drive around our region, it's amazing to me how many areas can't get cell phone access. And to me, that's just a basic safety issue. It's a basic issue, and it's something that needs to get addressed. I'm not sure how to address it. I don't think it's part of your purview, but it seemed like a good place to bring it up so that we don't forget that for some, just the ability to dial out is unavailable. Say nothing of the ability to use broadband.
Certainly, one of it's kind of an ancillary or a secondary item, but it's certainly having a fiber optic network helps out with a lot of cell coverage issues. A lot of cell towers work off of fiber optics, so not having it in the area is an issue. So certainly it'll help out with that. Redundancy issues, emergency management. There's a lot of pros that aren't necessarily highlighted. They're not the sexy topics, right? But those are certainly results of having a fiber optic network built, is having some emergency management communications on a number of different platforms that otherwise couldn't happen.
Thank you, Sean. I see that Bill Irwin has a comment or a question.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know, are you able to share the slides that you showed us, Sean? We are actively following the CUD in our Planning Commission in Bakersfield, and I'd like to share that with our other Planning Commission members.
Yeah, certainly. Catherine, I know I sent it to you. I'm sure.
Yeah, I can send it out to the full board after the meeting, certainly.
Not a problem. Also, a lot of our information and all of our minutes and everything is on our website, just nwcud.com. All of that information is there.
Thank you. Bob, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, so I finally got around to reading the Vermont Electric Co-op's newsletter today, or a portion of it, and they mentioned there that they are working on what they call pole preparation for fiber optic to be put in place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you've been interacting with them, and I don't know which areas they're trying to do that work. Hopefully, it's in our region, so it'll be ready for you guys.
Yeah, a lot of the utilities, they are at the very beginning of COVID. Many of them kind of did their own internal feasibility to see if they're interested in becoming a network operator or becoming a provider. They have since either reached out or we have reached out. So almost all of the utilities we're currently in discussion with. The two VEPSA members in our area, Swanton and Enosburg, Green Mountain, missing one, the co-op. So we're actively engaged in discussions about collaborating, because when we get to that make ready and site survey process, having them on board, it's going to be for speed as well as cost. It'll be important to have them as important contributors in that process. So we're certainly paying attention and having a lot of those discussions already.
Great.
Thank you, Sean. Anyone else? Interesting. And thanks again for the work that everyone is doing. Commissioner announcements. Brad?
I do have one, if you don't know yet. I just want to share with everyone that I will sadly be leaving my post as a commissioner with NRPC following this meeting. My family is relocating to Greenville, South Carolina, so I don't think I can zoom in from there. I want to say it's been a pleasure getting to know all of you, and I've just learned so much in my time just being around folks in this group. And I thank you for that. We're currently hiring for my replacement at the town, and we'll planning on appointing a commissioner to take my place in the coming weeks. With 20 years experience, I know Colleen can carry the torch, but we hope to provide her some support in the coming weeks here. I just want to say that I've gotten to see firsthand the effects, the support and the positive impact of NRPC's work. And I want to commend Catherine and her team for what they do for the region and each municipality. And I want to thank all of you for the time you volunteer and the effort you put into moving things forward in Franklin and Grand Isle counties. So keep up the good work, and I wish all of you the best of luck going forward.
Thank you so much for your service, Brad. And
Thanks, Brad.
you were it was great to have you on the Board of Commissioners. And I hear that you were doing good things in Fairfax as well. Can you share with us what you're leaving to do?
That is to be determined. Right now, I'm working on focusing on the transition to the next person in my position and trying to sell my house, which hopefully, if trends continue, won't be as difficult as has been in years past. But it's quite undetermined. Gonna have some feelers out there, but we're gonna let the chips fall where they may and just start a new adventure.
Good luck to you.
Thanks.
Anyone else have anything under commissioner announcements? Hearing none, I'd take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second from the Fairfax team. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thanks for joining, everyone. I know we didn't have a super packed agenda, but it is good for us to get together, stay in touch, make sure that if one of us has something we need to bring to the board, that it's available for that. So have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.